As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Welcome to the Gangs of Hollywood podcast.
Hey gang, welcome back to episode 4 of the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. I am, as always, Witch, and on this episode I am joined by the podcast machine, human IMDb, and all-around top bloke, Duncan McLeish. How are you, mate?
I'm doing really well. This is very exciting. I don't have to get into a time machine or be in another dimension to chat to you, which is good.
It's fantastic. It saves on a lot of travel and less chance of getting weird diseases or being forced to watch just rubbish movies.
Yeah, well, you say weird diseases, but depending on when this episode comes out, things might be a bit grim. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying they might be grim.
True. Well, look, I'm hiding behind a wall of toilet paper, so I think I'll be okay.
Also, I was thinking that when I was watching the movie earlier in the week, and medical advice being as it is, which is kind of so-so at the moment with what's happening, they did say that they reckon that it would not stand up, the virus would not stand up to kind of concentrated amounts of alcohol. And I was thinking, had this virus hit during the Untouchables, everyone would have been fucked.
That's exactly it. All the law-abiding people would have been dead. That's
yes.
it. Sorry. And you know what? The president at the time would have just said, "No, it's okay. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Everyone will be fine."
In fairness, I think he's saying that just now.
Yes, he is. Before we get into the movie that is quite clearly The Untouchables from 1997, for anyone that doesn't know you, because I've been podcast whoring myself across far and wide, would you like to let folks know just a little bit about yourself?
So, if you haven't guessed from the accent, I live in Scotland. I am the kind of founder of the podcast Under the Stairs, which has been on the go. This is our 7th year podcasting, which
God,
this is like, every time I say it, I just feel ill a little bit inside of me. It's like, think of all you could have learned guitar and be in a touring band right now. You could have built a pyramid. All these things that I could have done that I didn't do. It's a horror movie review podcast, and I spin off and do various other bits and bobs. At the moment, I'm doing kind of little other projects that are kind of flying around. But yeah, I have, through podcasting, had the opportunity to chat with many, many, many amazing people, including yourself. That's how we know each other. And yes. To say I am excited about this new venture is an understatement, and that because I'm on a horror podcast, chances are if people are inviting me onto a show, it's usually to discuss a horror movie. And whilst I know some horror fans are complete snobs and purists to the genre, I'm a lover of cinema, first and foremost. Horror just happens to be the particular alley that I like to gamble in, but I love all sorts of cinema. And this one, when you circulate the list, just happens to not only have some of my favourite actors of all time, but is directed by one of my favourite directors of all time. So I'm a massive De Palma fan. All his flaws and issues that he has notwithstanding, I think he's a phenomenal filmmaker. And this is the decade that really sets him apart. And this is one of the movies that kind of makes him a household name away from all the grubby genre movies he was doing. So, very excited to talk about this one. So thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, look, any time. And I know you have a passion for De Palma, which is why I was not surprised when you went, De Palma, that's me, just pick me.
There was other things on the list, like, that's a thump. You sent the first 10 episodes list out, and it was a thumping good list. And trust me, I went down that road, but there was kind of like, yeah, but that could be a much more fun conversation, or I could see so much about. But ultimately, I think it would be sacrilege to do an episode of this show and, pass up the opportunity, 1, talk about De Palma, and 2, talk about Connery. I think if there's a Sean Connery movie on a podcast and a Scotsman's not there talking about it, then an angel dies. Or a fairy loses its wings. I don't know. What are the two? A kitten sneezes? I don't know what the rules are.
Maybe a pub closes. Who knows?
See, now there you go. You said that right there. My left testicle just went right up. So
I got that weirdest feeling. So while everyone's feeling just decidedly uncomfortable, we might just quickly go to the trailer of 1987's The Untouchables and then come back and talk a bit about the movie.
I grew up in a tough neighborhood. Sometimes a reputation follows you.
Robert De Niro is Al Capone.
There is violence in Chicago, of course, but not by me and not by anybody I employ, and I'll tell you why, because it's not good business.
Kevin Costner is Elliot Ness.
I have sworn to put this man away with any and all legal means at my disposal, and I will do so.
Sean Connery is Jimmy Malone.
You want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. You just joined the Treasury Department, son. Everybody knows where the booze is. The problem isn't finding it.
Let's do some good!
The problem is who wants to cross Capone.
Somebody messes with me, I'm gonna mess with him.
You carry a badge?
Yes?
Carry a gun.
Get your hands in the air!
You're all under arrest.
You fellas are untouchable. Is that the thing? No one can get to you? Hey, everybody can be gotten to.
All right, then. Drive him to the station. Anything happens, you shoot first. You understand me?
Well, I'll tell you one more thing. You got an all-out prize fight, you wait till the fight's over, one guy's left standing, and that's how you know who won.
Just tell me, are you being careful?
Careful as mice.
I want to hurt the man, Malone. I want to start taking the battle to him. I want to hurt Capone.
This man can finger Al Capone. This man can put Capone behind bars.
Well, what's the matter? Can't you talk with a gun in your mouth?
You're not approve of your methods. Yeah? Well, you're not from Chicago.
I want you to find this Nancy boy, Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead.
Paramount Pictures presents a Brian De Palma film.
I have forsworn myself. I have broken every law I swore to defend. I have become what I beheld, and I am content that I have done right.
You got nothing. Nothing. And if you were a man, you would have done it now.
Never stop fighting till the fight is done.
The Untouchables.
All right, so this movie is, of course, 1987's The Untouchables, runtime of 1 hour and 59 minutes, and it goes by at an absolute, despite the fact that it's 2 hours, it goes by at a clip. It really doesn't drag at all.
I think the fact that it's set in the movie's really clever in that it picks a time period where, like, we know, like, Al Capone's already established as a character, and we know who Al Capone is, even if you know who he is. So he's already established, and we're coming right on the back of kind of Elliot Ness being kind of appointed to his position that he's in, and then you're following his journey right through until the inevitable end, so to speak, that there's no downtime at all. It's a very exciting time, just in general. Yeah. And as a result, the movie kind of grabs you and pulls you along, and then there's like a lot of De Palma movies that are longer tend to be very interesting just because of the way he directs movies. He's very inventive with the camera, so you're never really sat with a point where you're like, well, this is a bit of a boring scene, because there's always like a million things happening. So yeah, like, I hadn't realised until you just said there that this movie's just under 2 hours long. I'd always assumed it was about an hour and a half, so there you go. And I just watched it like a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I literally watched it again last night when I was sort of finishing my notes, and it's just like, no, I was like, oh, I'm done. And then I looked at the counter and went, oh shit, it's like 2 hours. But because there are some movies that are 2 hours, it's like, oh. But he doesn't waste time on, like, pointless character development or anything else. You get enough about the characters, and as you said, it's like everyone knows this story. Ultimately, maybe not the intimate detail, but everyone knows the story, and obviously ticking off the fact that it's a De Palma movie, and we will be visiting De Palma again very soon with one of my all-time favourites in 1983's Scarface. I love that movie so much. It's just so good. It's you've got Costner, who, is a little polarising. There are a lot of people that don't like Costner. I think this is definitely one of his better movies.
It's weird to remember that at one point Kevin Costner was the highest paid actor in the world. I mean, he
was in everything.
He was the early 90s, he was the man. Like, you put Costner in a movie that was guaranteed huge money. And it wasn't really until, and it wasn't even his fault, the flop that was Waterworld kind of really destroyed that. But up until that point, he was bankable. I mean, you would watch him in like A Field of Dreams. You'd watch him in JFK, which is like another great movie, notwithstanding some of the inaccuracies of the time. Of course, that's my personal opinion. But you know what I mean. He's
back into the left.
Back into the left. But like he was the name. So you have De Palma, who is coming off. I mean, at this stage, De Palma is making the transition. He's done kind of weird, kind of Giallo-esque sort of movies. He's kind of moving out of that horror realm that he's been in pretty much since he started. Scarface is a transition one, so he does that one. He's now doing things about gangs, etc. He does that movie, which his name escapes me, with Danny DeVito, the comedy that comes out the year before this.
Couldn't tell you.
So he does like a gangster comedy the year before this one. It's not a big hit at all, and then hits out with the Untouchables, and it's like, right, the man has now arrived, and this makes a shitload of money, and then within 5-6 years maybe tops, he's working on Mission Impossible, and that's his highest grossing movie. So he's doing things. The cast is insane for this. Like, not only you talking Costner, the highest paid actor, you're talking Sean Connery, who is, even at this stage still, even though he's on the downswing, he's still a bankable name. You've got De Niro in here as Capone, which is a stroke of genius, and you've got Andy Garcia, who is fucking brilliant in this movie, and Billy Drago.
Yeah, I know.
Billy Drago, which is the reason to watch this movie over and over and over again.
I love Billy Drago so much, and Cat out of the bag, he is my absolute standout for this movie. As Nitty the Enforcer, he is fantastic.
He doesn't need to say anything in a scene for you to realise that, one, he's dangerous, and two, totally sleazy.
He exudes Predator, and it's just like, he's just absolutely filthy, but so good. Now, look, we mentioned obviously Connery, and unabashedly love Connery. He is my James Bond. I know a lot of people don't like James Bond.
This is why I love you. He's my James Bond as well. I think the conversation really ends with him. I mean, there's plenty of interesting Bonds, but to me, the definitive Bond is Connery. So
is Connery, without a shadow of a doubt. That movie from '86 with Danny DeVito and Joe Pesci is Wise Guys.
See, I knew it was mob based anyway. It's not a bad movie, but it's one that people forget pretty quick.
Yes, it is, and I may well touch on that down the track. As I said, De Palma will be visited on a regular basis. Now, we'll talk about some facts, and like I said, you mentioned, as I said, Connery is my Bond, and he's awesome in this movie, despite the fact that he's playing an Irishman. And it's the Connery rule of accents. It's the same accent regardless of what he's doing. He's Russian, he's Irish, he's anything. It doesn't matter.
An Egyptian Spaniard, if you will.
If you will, exactly. Same accent all the way through. And that just says, you know what? He can do what he wants because he's Connery.
Yeah, I mean, we're not like... I know to the Americans, the uneducated Americans out there, not your faithful American listeners out there who know the difference, it is common to mistake an Irish accent for a Scottish accent. I don't know why, because they are vastly different.
Yes.
So I think maybe that plays okay to some audiences who don't know the subtle nuances of the fact that Sean Connery just sounds like Sean. No one sounds like Sean Connery. So I think maybe that's how he gets away with it. But he is, I mean, even at the age that he was in this movie, he is still a hard bastard.
Oh, yeah.
You would not want to be on the wrong side of him at all.
Yeah, you know he's got a right cross that will just cave your nose in. And he's not taking any shit. He drinks scotch for breakfast and just does not give a shit. It's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. And it's Andy Garcia, he's on the rise at this point in time, and he is as good as.
Yeah, he's brilliant in this one, because what's weird about Andy Garcia is, in years to come after this movie, he would be the logical choice to play Capone. You know what I mean? He would head down that way. But he's fresh-faced in this movie. He is, he's got a lot of enthusiasm. And I think it shows a lot of his acting chops and ability here, where he is not a leading man, but when the camera's on him, he feels like the leading man. Like, Costner is really good in this movie at not overshadowing anyone in the cast. I think it's very easy, and a trope and a trend in a lot of kind of gang crime movies, to make sure that your kind of law enforcement officer is so charismatic that he's he's the guy that's going to get to the bottom of this case. You know what I mean? That's the way they usually work, and that's not how Capone was taken down, and this movie understands that. You need someone who's a leading man to play Elliot Ness, but you need to have captivating characters who are all in their own right, good at certain things. And this is like a weird kind of amalgamation of ordinary cops, Irish beat cops, accountants, like all kind of banding together to bring their own set of skills together and become the Untouchables. And I think
one might say they have a unique set of skills.
Yeah, a unique set of skills. What I love about it as well is that the name in itself belies the violence that will happen later on, specifically to that team of cops. And I think it works in a lot of different ways, but you just assume with these, you're giving away things in this show anyway, and this movie's quite old. You would never expect Sean Connery to die in this movie. Never in a million fucking years would you expect him to die. And I think that's specifically the hands in Nitty, but when you see it happen, it's built up so much goodwill. Whenever any hero dies in this movie, you feel it, man. It lands with you, and that is a testament to not having one guy who rules the roost, so to speak, when you look at the kind of protagonist in the movie. But at the same time, the fact that you spend enough time with every single character here, enough to kind of gravitate to them and be concerned about their kind of health and safety. And on the flip side of that,
you build an emotional connection. And I was just going to say, you talk about when they die, and you really feel it. And I think part of that's got to do with the score. I mean, it's Ennio Morricone.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong there. But the music is so evocative and so emotional that you feel everything that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane once again that we're not only talking about Brian De Palma. Like, this is kind of, we're almost at his peak level of influence, and then on top of that, you're talking about arguably the greatest composer of all time, who's just he's just slumming it for a little American movie while he's taking a break. It's so strange, but it adds so much. The wrong score in a movie like this totally ruins it. It can make it far too cheesy. The score is instantly memorable. Like, watching it, which will be the first time I've seen it in a couple of years, to be fair, but watching it at the start of the week, as soon as that, as soon as it starts kicking in, I'm like, oh right, I'm right back to where I was the first time I watched this movie. And it's the power of the score, man. It's what I talk about it so much on my show. I think sometimes people roll their eyes when they're, here goes Duncan to talk about a score. A score can make and break a movie. Some scores,
absolutely.
Some scores are not memorable at all, and as a result, you have too much time to think about things. When a movie has got a great score, regardless of what's on the screen, you're constantly being moved forward with the story. And this has it. This is a very well crafted, great little score, which fits through it. And then the other factor that you need to make this movie work is a great villain. And we do not see a lot of Capone in this movie at all. But what you do see of him is, like, every scene, he's even more malicious than he was. The baseball bat scene in this movie is fucking incredible.
It is very at a very personal level, incredibly like jarring and just only for the fact that I've sat in meetings in my professional life that were almost identical to that, and the only thing between a baseball bat was actually somebody's fist being pounded on a boardroom table right next to somebody. And it was just like I was waiting for like someone to just freaking die. So you laugh, but it's true. And for those of you at home that are playing, that was in the childcare industry. So think about that for a second.
Yeah, let that sink in.
Yeah, that's right. These are the people that have the care of your young ones. But you're right. I mean, you don't get an overdose of Capone. You don't. And De Niro in this is like every scene. Like if you Google this and go to YouTube, the clips that everybody knows, 3 out of 5 of those are De Niro as Capone.
Yeah,
easily. You know, and it's his full on commitment to this. I mean, this is him at his absolute just face pulling, body throwing, just full commitment best.
Yeah.
You know, he put on like 30 pounds or something to play the role.
Of course, because he's Pacino. Not Pacino, sorry, De Niro. That's what this guy does. This is what this guy does. Like, even down to the fact that, like, there's infamous stories about like, finding the guy that made Capone's suits. Like, his original tailor, tracking this guy down and saying, right, you make me suits like you made... Because he encapsulates the role completely, and there's a lot to be said about method actors. You know, sometimes it's a complete pain in the tits. I understand that, right? But
yes,
if you've got De Niro, you know, all in on this, then you have nothing... As a director, you have nothing to worry about. Like, nothing at all. Now, here's a little fact that I found on IMDb, which, like, kind of made me chuckle to the many, many, many different ways this movie could be different. I'm going to read you a list of actors, my friend, that were originally considered to play Elliot Ness. This is kind of amazing, right? So, some totally work. Some you'll just be like, what were they thinking? And others you'll be like... Remember, he was American, right? So
he was American, definitely.
So actors that were considered, Alec Baldwin. I'm thinking not a bad choice. That could work.
Not a bad choice. Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah. Nicolas Cage. Thinking different movie.
Well, that's a very different movie.
I'm thinking different movie. Michael Douglas, once again, I think maybe a little bit too old. Even at that stage, I think maybe a little bit too old.
Even if that stage a little old, but maybe.
Yeah. Rutger Hauer, which is... we're going off.
Yeah, no, that's off on a tangent. And Rutger Hauer, I love Rutger Hauer, but no. I would never see him in a period piece like this.
No. In the future, as a replicant or nothing else. That's the way that works. Ed Harris, which I think could have worked. Like, Ed Harris is...
Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
He's got that look about him.
Yeah, I think he's quite small though, I think, but I think it could have worked. William Hurt, which I think is a great shout. I love William Hurt in absolutely everything, so William can do no wrong. A guy who's really coming out his own, but in the 80s probably not. Don Johnson was considered.
Yeah, see, I read the Don Johnson one and went, yeah, 80s Don Johnson? No. Current Don Johnson?
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He's brilliant. He's having a little renaissance right now. A Johnson sauce, although I think that might be something else now that I've said it. Oh, no, let's not go there. Michael Keaton, which I think a little bit too fresh-faced.
And really, he did do Johnny Dangerously, and after that, he could never play a mobster.
So, also, he's Batman, so I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Can't have that. Mel Gibson, which too manic
again. And really, at this point in time, too young.
Of course. As is this one, right? This is amazing. Christopher Lambert, right? So we could have had a Highlander reunion here, like.
Oh my god!
Like where Connery dies and then his power goes. You must avenge me, Highlander. So John Malkovich, which no.
Too much of a villain.
Yeah.
Too much of a villain.
As is this Ron Perlman, never in a million years.
No, again, can't see Ron Perlman in a period piece like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like the episode of the original Star Trek where Spock dresses up as a gangster. It just looks wrong.
This is not right. One that got my attention, I would watch it every day of the week. Kurt Russell was considered for a time. So this would be Kurt Russell post... this would be the year after Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
So
again, very different movie.
Completely different movie. I think he could do it, but could he do it as good as the next choice? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Capone, you're going down.
Going down. Let's do some good.
And then the only thing kind of stranger than that, because we're just throwing everything in here, Sylvester Stallone. I mean, I'm trying to think when Oscar came out. Oscar's the late 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of mob bossy sort of.
Yeah, look, again, I like Stallone in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Not as this. And again, maybe on the other side of the fence.
Yep.
The only other one that I saw, which I went, I don't understand, was Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke and Nick Nolte, both as well for that. And Nick Nolte, far too haggard voice, and
yes.
I mean, I don't get it. The last couple of names, John Travolta, Bruce Willis and James Wood. Bruce Willis, too much of that leading guy thing that you don't want. John Travolta, this is before he really kind of steps up and kind of finds new life in doing kind of Pulp Fiction. James Woods is an interesting one, actually. I think
James Woods could do it.
I think he's the closest, I think, out of the list of names there where I could see that. Weirdly enough, completely different energy to Costner. Costner's got a very chilled energy, even when he's building up. I think it's one of the reasons I think it works. I think if you have too much of a manic character there, especially when you think about some of the action set pieces and the scene like where they first kind of catch the rum runners and he's standing there and he's pictures for the paper and all these sort of things. James Woods maybe a bit too smug for that scene. Question mark?
Yeah, maybe it's James Wood can do quiet intensity quite well, though. I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how he's directed, I think, and look, given that it was in De Palma's hands, he probably could have pulled it off.
Yeah,
but I don't think you would have got the same emotional connection if you put James Woods in those family situations that obviously they play. I don't think you would have got that feeling. Like, Costner in those scenes, with his family and everything else, you can see that there's an emotional connection. Like it actually plays out. Woods, is always fairly aloof.
Yeah,
I don't think that would have maybe come off as well.
I think you're spot on. I think it's a weird thing that sometimes when you see a list of other cast that were potentially recommended or considered, and you think about how that changes the dynamic of a movie and how that movie would be post. And weirdly enough, I think the casting's perfect in this movie. Like, there's not one actor in here that I'm like, oh, if we just changed that out. Everyone completely occupies the role they're supposed to do, does no more than is required for them, and you remember standout scenes with each of those characters in their own right. You know what I mean? And that's a testament to not only great performances but great filmmaking.
Now, I'm going to counter your Elliot Ness potentials with something that I read about a Capone potential who was De Palma's backup in case De Niro said no, Bob Hoskins.
I love Bob Hoskins. And that's purely for stature. That's not for...
Yeah.
That's not for anything.
That's a little round man that can play angry.
Have you ever, the weird thing about it, is I love Bob Hoskins. I think he's a fucking amazing actor. And he'd done some, if it's not on your list, in fact, I'm not giving it away just in case you're considered somewhere down, but if I get an invite coming back, I've got a movie that we need to do because it's fucking insane, and you've seen it before, but we'll just tease them. This is how you get them back.
I know what we're talking about.
All right. But Bob Hoskins' American accent is not great, right? It's okay, it passes him, but it's not great, and you only have to look at something like Shattered, which is like a all-time favourite movie of mine, and his American accent in that is I mean, it's kind of like Dick Van Dyke being a chimney sweep. You know what I mean? It's you know what I mean? It's a bit too on the nose. So
yeah.
Bob Hoskins is purely stature, though. That can only be it. That can only, like, we need someone to fit this suit. Hoskins is a man
that can do the lean back look and just be angry. You know, it's easy to picture Bob Hoskins with a cigar in his mouth, and that's what it is. Right? That's the look.
Yeah.
But I read the interesting thing was that the tidbit was that. Obviously, you know, De Palma was concerned that De Niro would say no. And he talked to Bob Hoskins, and he actually mailed him a check for £20,000 just to say thank you for talking to him.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ. Oh, well played, Tom. Well played, Tom.
Here's 20 grand just for having a quick chat in case the guy that I really want to play the movie isn't in on it. I mean, how good is that?
He's a nice guy. I keep saying that. Yeah, he's made some bad choices, but he's a nice guy. Here's a question for you, right? Here's a question for you. Why do you think it is that The Untouchables maybe isn't spoken about enough nowadays? Do you think it's purely the time period? When you consider the movies round about it, like Carlito's Way is always mentioned, and, you know, that you mentioned earlier on, Scarface is always mentioned. And I would argue, and I know you're probably going to disagree with me, I think The Untouchables is the better of those three movies, but it always seems that people go to one extreme with Scarface, or they focus like purely on Carlito's Way, and for some reason always kind of jump over The Untouchables, which is weird to me considering I think Untouchables is the one that did better critically and financially as well.
Well, I think it pulled in like 106 million
is that all?
Worldwide. Yeah, but you know that was like, you know, in its original release. You know, honestly, again, Scarface is a real soft spot in my heart, a white soft spot. And Carlito's Way is again a different movie. I gravitate to this, and I think it's got to do with when I saw it, how I feel about it. But I think a lot of people look at it, and if it's the one thing that people go, yeah, it's what puts them off, it's Costner, and the fact that this was a big award-winning Academy movie.
Oh yeah. This one turned heads. So in a way that, like, that's what I'm saying. This is the one that puts De Palma weirdly on the map. Like, everyone's like that. This De Palma, this De Palma guy can direct.
Yeah, he could do stuff, and you know, it's all out there. But you know, you go to your movie snob, and you know, we're both quite familiar with them in various genre levels. And they go, you know, I don't look at that because that's for the little people.
Yeah, I think you're hitting, like, I it's only through this conversation. Like, I understand that there's a bit of kind of negative press that's been slung Costner's way. But I always just remember Costner as being like Robin Hood, and you know, like, which that movie was fucking huge. That Bryan Adams song was #1 in the UK charts for like 16
everywhere.
weeks, and it just kept happening and happening. So I just remember Costner in this time period being like the biggest name ever. That I always just assume that this is the biggest movie. And it's not the one that people talk about. And I wonder if you're right there when you look at something like Carlito's Way, or you're looking at Scarface particular. What do those movies have in common? Huge Al Pacino performances. And I think maybe that's what it is. People like Pacino is, I mean, he's widely regarded as the greatest actor of all time. So maybe that's... Whereas I don't think Kevin Costner's on that top 20 list.
Well, no, because people go, hey, remember the Postman?
See, when you, like, it's like, you know, when you see prize fighters who have, like, are, like, really have never lost a fight ever, and then they lose that one fight, and then after that, they're kind of human after that, and then, like, they lose a string of fights because their confidence is all gone. That's the story of Costner. Like, Costner could do no wrong until Waterworld, and then The Postman came out, and we were like, what are we doing here?
It's like,
what's going on?
Really? Please stop. Please stop.
Let's just have a sit down with him and tell him to just cool his jets for a couple of years until something good comes along. And it's really, really, really weird. And I think what's interesting about it is how unremarkable he is. I think that's maybe what it is. Like, when you see like Pacino through the different eras of Pacino, he's kind of coming back out the really loud, kind of shouty 90s, early 2000s phase, and like a really interesting actor. If you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or even that kind of the Nazi Hunter TV show that's going on just now, he's really found like this kind of this rhythm and groove, which is a bit softer in the way he talks, which I like a lot more. If I'm honest, there's always so much hoo-ah! You know,
there's more acting than actual shouting.
Yeah, it's just like, it's the way that like Tom Jones sings. Like, people keep telling me he's a great singer. I'm like, he shouts. He shouts in key. Like that's literally all.
It's a skill in itself, though. In all fairness, it's a skill in itself.
But I think that's maybe what it is. It's weird. I hadn't really considered. It's one of these things where I'm now going down a rabbit hole talking about this, where I'm maybe overanalyzing things. But it does make you look. You've read out all the credentials for this movie. You've read out the cast here. We've talked about how great it is. We've talked about the awards it's won, how much money it's made. And weirdly enough, like I say, you put that movie bookended by two Pacino De Palma productions, and I genuinely think, maybe I'm wrong, but I never hear The Untouchables get as much love nowadays as I think the movie deserves. It holds up really, really, really well. Like, surprisingly well.
In terms of production and visuals and everything else, you know, I reckon there's probably one scene that's a little ropey, which is obviously when Nitty falls off the blue screen on that's not. But that's the only point.
Yeah,
that's the only point in the entire movie where you go, not so good. Everything else is visually right. It's lit well. Mm-hmm. You know, the suits and everything else that go with it are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, even the gun scenes. Like, yes. You know, when people are getting shot, like the squibs and all the rest. Like, it's one of the arguments for like keeping things practical against digital. Like, you show me any movie that has a gun scene where there's digital blood, 30 odd years after its release, and tell me if that's holding up, and it isn't. Then you look at this and you're like, that's for life. That will always look that crisp.
Yeah, you know, and this is, like you say, 30 plus years on, and it is gorgeous. You know, the vehicles are right. Everything's, you know, set out. Sure, they had a shitload of money that they could afford to shut down, you know, like the bridge scene that they do when they actually pick up the bootleggers coming across.
Yep.
You know, they shut down that bridge, which apparently was a fairly important thoroughfare. They shut it down for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
to do shooting.
I mean, they closed down that section of the Chicago train station.
Yes.
For that infamous scene, which I mean, that is the hub, you know, of public transport in that city as well. So yeah, when you've got some money to bash about, and you know, you can close off parts of, like, huge parts of the city that is needed to do this, you have that behind you. You have time to really make sure that everything is spot on. And De Palma is known for that ridiculous attention to detail. He's a guy who sees the movie before it's playing in his brain, and what you get is you get the result of that kind of perfectionist tones that he's putting out, and it's why it stands out. It's why it looks so good. 33 years old the movie is, which is like nuts. I know movies that are 10 years old that are shit. So.
Yeah, that's right. You think of any other movie from that period when, you know, we were coming to the end of the slasher boom and everything else. You know, some of the movies that came out then were not good.
No.
You know, we're admittedly, you know, low budget, but even some of the high-end stuff where they were just desperate to get, you know, bums in seats because VCR was going to ruin the world.
Yeah.
Were not great. And this, you know, like I say, it's 33 years on. You can watch it, and it's beautiful. The music is great, and everything that's in it just drives you through it. Again, that pulls it back to how is it 2 hours? It doesn't feel like 2 hours.
I think the also what the movie has in its favour, not only for its runtime, is the actual order how it's running. So like at key moments, very much like, as weirdly, it reminds me of like the best computer games are the ones where you, like, as you progress through the story, you get another travel companion that helps you get to the next bit. And they're introduced at timely parts of the story, not too many characters introduced at one time. You move through, each character brings their own skill set to improve the next level of what Elliot Ness ultimately wants to do in taking down Capone. And then builds up the kind of level of, well, these guys are untouchable. And just at their peak untouchability, which is not a word, but I'm putting it out there, that's when Capone hits back. And it's it's brilliant, because then it brings you back down, and then they have to coalesce again for this final push to take down Capone. And I think that's a genius of the movie, is that the pacing is set so well with those key moments. Because like De Palma knows that you need these key moments to be, you need the build up to them, the big kind of pathos, the release of these key characters being introduced, and moving them through that way. There isn't any downtime. Even the time where like Ness is trying to, he's doing a bit of soul searching or whatnot, these moments have impact, and you're drawn in as the audience, and that is why 2 hours feels like an hour and a half. It can't be any other way, because it's crafted so well. Like, even when we go to Canada, like, even when the Mounties are there, even when like we're going off in a different kind of like out with the city, like out to like big open green areas and or whatnot, where a movie would say that's where you would kind of want to slow down or change the dynamic of the movie. It's just as action packed.
There's still so much going on, and you know what? Because you are such a podcast professional, you have segued into just running through the beats of the movie. Absolutely perfect.
Oh, there we go. It's almost as if I had done this before. Well, not with this movie. I'm not with this movie. So,
in all your time, you've not sat and talked about this movie.
Never. No. I think me and a fellow podcasting friend, Bo Ransdell, have talked about the Untouchables, but never in a recording. So we sometimes quote this movie. For no reason at all. I think he does it purely because he thinks all Scotsmen sound like Willie from The Simpsons. Or like Sean Connery, there's no middle ground. Like that, both is like polar extremes. So yeah, like it's one of those ones. That's why I was excited to come and talk about it. It's one of those ones that I genuinely feel like it's like the same way I have this weird affinity with it's this Outlander, the Sean Connery movie. Outland, not
Outland,
yeah.
where he's a space cop, on a mine,
and that to me has an incredible director behind it, has a great production behind it, has one of the quintessential Connery performances in my mind, and it's another movie that just seems to be lost to the pound DVD bin of time. I don't understand why that movie is not bigger than it is, because I think it's absolutely nuts. And I'm not saying The Untouchables is in the pound bin by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just that it's these movies you just never hear talk about, which is weird again when you consider how prevalent kind of mafia stories became specifically after this. If you're looking at things like Goodfellas or specifically things like Casino. Then into things like The Sopranos, even up to things like Boardwalk Empire, which kind of covers from a different side the rise of a character like Al Capone. When you look at all that, you would think people would be watching those and then going back and checking out The Untouchables or at least mentioning it. I just don't think they necessarily do. We have to touch on it. We've been skirting around it. We've kind of mentioned it already, and we have been going through the kind of chronology of this movie. There's a particularly sad scene where national treasure Sean Connery dies. Right? He dies at the hand of fucking
Nitty the enforcer.
Nitty the white suit wearing enforcer, who kind of is like a more kind of, he's got like, he's very gaunt in this movie, which should make him less threatening, but for whatever reason makes him more lizard or dragon-like. It's weird.
Yeah, it's lizard-like, because like I said, as soon as Billy Drago smiles, you're just going, oh no.
It's creepy. It's creepy.
No, that says just predator.
Yeah, like whenever he smells a baby's died, that's literally, you know what I mean? That's like, he knows something I don't know. The only smile I've ever seen on any character that resembles that mostly is the cartoon Grinch. When he, when he realises Christmas isn't going to happen. But yeah, like Connery, like, I love this scene. Now, there's a couple of reasons I love this scene. Because the first big reason is De Palma directs the shit out of this. We get some classic dual screen De Palma work in here, but he lingers over the agonising death of Jim Malone, who like takes about, if this movie's 2 hours long, half an hour of this is Jim Malone dying. Like,
just dragging himself up the hallway by his fingers.
Yeah, you feel every pain, and you are willing him as the audience. I don't know how many times I've seen this movie where I'm still willing him just to get there, just in time. And it's brilliant, and it's the great arc of that character about how he is telling him about how you hit back, like what you need to do. You know, they send one of your guys to the hospital, you send one of their guys to the morgue. One of the greatest lines.
That's right. If he pulls a knife, you pull a gun.
Yeah, it's this, you know, like, you to take down the mob, you have to be like more ruthless than the mob. And Kevin Costner does not look like he's more ruthless than the mob. Remember, we saw the baseball bat scene earlier, and it terrified us. But yeah, like, it's that idea of like pushing him up, and weirdly, like him dying the way he does, like in, you know, almost in the arms of Elliot Ness, being the way it is, like, motivates that character to move on. But what is brilliant about it is that you expect Ness to go out all out war bloodbath, and it doesn't go that way. Like, he doesn't really compromise much of any of his values at all, leading into the kind of final kind of scenes with the kind of shootout and stuff. He doesn't go like
he doesn't go Rambo.
Yeah, he doesn't. Which, once again, it would be really easy to make that movie. And he doesn't do it. And he holds back, and I think it's testament to great writing, but also testament to great directing and acting as well, that they know not to, like, he has to be the quote unquote pious character that we are, you know, wholesome character that we are siding with here. Otherwise, what's the point of all this? And
yeah, he's the one good man.
He is, and the one good man will take down the evil kind of arch villain. And that to me is another reason why it all holds together. Even when we're De Palma is playing every trick in the book to make you go, Malone must be avenged. You know, like, we hold back on it, and it doesn't affect the movie at all that way. If anything, I think it makes the kind of the end of the movie and Capone's comeuppance, so to speak, all the more sweeter. Like, he got him the legal way. He could have got him any other way. He's a cop, but he got him the legal way. And I love that. I love the very end. Like, you just, when you know, you know, you're going down for this, and you're like, De Niro's kind of half doing the kind of De Niro smile, because he has to be seen as being kind of, but the other part of him is looking for a baseball bat that's not there.
Oh yeah, he's raging. He's absolutely raging. You know, you're nothing but a mouth and a badge. He's just, just going.
It's fucking amazing. It's the best way to end the movie.
And the thing is, you see the scope of that, like, scene as De Palma sort of draws out, and you know, and the courtroom's in absolute chaos. You know, everyone's there. They're holding him back, and you just see Ness just stroll out to go, "Yep, did it the right way, absolutely win." And it's just, you know, if he could have flipped him off and got away with it, he would have. And it's just so good, you know. It closes it out really well. Look, we've tapped on a couple of, like, really key scenes, and I really just want to get a couple of others. And I think it's really worth. And it's that opening scene where we start with the overhead.
Oh, yeah.
And you get, you know, the sort of basic rundown of where we are in the movie, and Capone's talking to the newspaper guys, you know, and he says, in my neighborhood, you know, we used to say you got further with a kind word and a gun than you did with just a kind word.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yep, I know exactly where I stand now. I know what to expect.
It's a weird time period as well when you consider that, like, the police know that he's like a rum runner. The media knows he's a rum runner. You know what I mean? He knows that they all know, but they're all running up for quotes and all the rest because he's like a respectable businessman. You know, like everyone knows he's a mobster, but there are all these quotes from Capone talking back to, like, I just think I love that. I absolutely love that. I think it's great, and the way he plays off it is, you know, like, nothing's going to stick to me. And what he's saying is not necessarily, weirdly enough, I'm not kind of against it. You know what I mean? What he's saying is, like, be nice to people, but if you have to show force, show force. Like, my country, we don't have guns, and I'm quite glad about that.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? It's that sort of level of... It's that way that, like, I'm not a mobster, and you have got a show where you're going to be dealing with a lot of gangs and stuff like this, but there is a code, a kind of central code, not the extortion part, and the Cosa Nostra, and, you know, that I kind of respect. That idea of looking after your own people, making sure that, you know, horrible outside influences don't affect things, and, like, sticking true to your word. I love that aspect. It's just all the violence and all the horrible shit at the back end that I don't get. And I can see why, as audience members, and people at the time, could fall in love with the mob. You know, that idea of, you know, well, they're protecting the streets, they're looking out for us. Yeah, we have to kick them up some money, but I never see any trouble, and I know everyone's name.
They're giving us something that the government took away.
Yes. And I love that. You know, you talk about opening shots. Not only you getting that great overhead shot, not only you know exactly where you stand with Al Capone, but this does a fantastic job of just putting if you imagine you're stacking a chessboard, this puts all the key players in their place very, very, very quickly, and it does it not only in an efficient way, but in a way where you don't feel like we've rushed the story. Because we are dropping, you know, into, like, Prohibition's already happened. So, so we're dropping it in the middle of the story, and we don't need, like, a Star Warsian, like, intro, you know, like 19th, you know, we don't need that. We get as much information from media people talking, from, like, Al Capone, and then we'll lead up to Elliot Ness making his bust, and we get enough of it that we know exactly where we stand. And that aids a lot, because then we can relax, right? I know where we are, level footing, let's go with it, let's bring him down.
Yeah, that's it. We know, you know, I mean, Capone says, he goes, you know, when it's on the boat, it's bootlegging. When it's on Park Avenue, it's hospitality.
Yeah.
Right? Yep, and that's it. And you know in the background that even when Ness is introduced, you know, to the police initially in the flying squad, you just get the sense that everyone's just bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what? they're corrupt. I mean, look, I made a note and I went, the flying squad look like Nazi stormtroopers.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie about it. It's just like straight away that visual tells you that they're all rotten.
Yeah.
That there is not a good man amongst them. And look, there probably were. But, you know, the visual, like you say, it sets it so quickly without having to go into a massive amount of detail about, you know, what's going on. And, you know, it sort of goes through, and we obviously get to meet Jim Malone, and, you know, we get the whole bit about it's the Chicago way.
It's pretty good. That was pretty good.
Thank you. I'm pretty impressed by that one. You know, and Andy Garcia is George Stone, and even that bit, you know, the just the blatant racism.
Oh yeah,
that is in that scene. But you know what? That's the way it was. There was a real dividing line there between you know, different cultures and everything else.
Plus, George Stone, the most, like, he might as well been called Jim Liberty. I mean, it's like the most American of American. Really, yeah. George Stone, you're fooling no one.
Yes, Sam Francisco.
Yeah.
Oh God. That's another movie that I can't do on this show, but I love it. Anyway, right, so, you get all that. You're even introduced to Wallace. Initially, you just sort of go, don't get what he's there, but of course, he's the linchpin to the whole reason, how Capone comes down with the tax and everything else. And even that bit, while it's like it's tax, it's accountancy, it's not exciting. He as a character is developed really, really well, despite the fact that it's a fairly minor part.
Yeah, well, you see him later on wielding a shotgun, walking about the place with a cigar. It's like, well done, Wallace.
well done. He's just going, I've got a gun. He's excited about it. And, we sort of get through. Everyone's there and they're on board. And one of the things that stands out to me every time is, the Untouchables has been formed, and Malone says, all right, we're going to go on a raid. And they literally go across the street to the post office. And it's full. It's absolutely full of just illegal booze, and it's just like, it's not the fact that no one knows where the booze is, it's just the fact that no one's willing to do it.
Exactly, but that's why you get that cynical view from Malone towards Ness. It's like, right, like he's heard this speech before. He's heard other police officers and the mayor and whatever, we're going to crack down on this, like this alcohol that's being run in here. He's heard this pitch before, and he's completely and rightly cynical about it. And then when he puts them to the test, let's see what you'll do, Elliot Ness, when you're confronted with how close this problem is right now. Let's see what you do, and it's the first big test for him. And that's kind of what I love about it, because once Malone knows that Ness is the guy to do all this, right, he plans out the strategy. This is what we're going to do, and this is where we're going to hit them, and this is how we're going to make them hurt. And you could argue that, Malone's approach is what escalates things to the level they do. But it's two kind of sides of the team here. So you've got the muscle, which is Malone, which is going to rattle things up, but ultimately it's the brains of Wallace that's going to come up with the charges that will stick within the law. But you need both elements, because if it's just pure muscle, you're not going to get arrests. You're just going to have bodies. And if you have the brain side of things, he's going to wriggle out of this. You need to make him overreach. You need to make him overstretch his cards on the table here, so we can all see what he's got, and then he's fucked. And yeah, it's so well done. I'm bounced to my chair talking about it, because I'm loving everything that's happening right now. But it's so well done. It's so easy to make, and it aids it because it's 1987. It's so easy to make a kind of gangster mob movie that just feels so derivative. And The Untouchables is weirdly fresh, considering it's set before most of these movies that will be talked about. It's like the time period itself is one that is not always looked at with a huge amount of detail when you're talking about specifically things like the mob. And it's one of the more exciting times.
It's one of the times where I think the people's view, the general populace's view of the mob changed, because they were essentially providing a service, sure at the cost of quite a lot of things, but they were giving the community back something that the government took away, and I think that's why particularly this period is quite. It's weirdly polarizing, and why movies tend to go more towards, talking about Capone and the mob and everything else, rather than the law enforcement guys. Because essentially, while, in this, Ness is the good guy and Capone is the bad guy, in public view, it was a little different. There were hardliners that said the law is the law, the way that obviously Ness said it, and there were others saying, well, you know what? We've had prohibition for 12 plus years now, and we just want to drink, we just want to relax. We've always had it before, we want it again. These guys are providing it, albeit, there's kickbacks and everything else that goes with it. And it's one of the things that really draws me to this. And in other episodes, I've sort of mentioned it that, obviously Australia's built on the back of criminals. But
I'm sure I read that somewhere. What I'm happy to know is we had nothing to do with it. So
yes, although no doubt there were some of yours that were sent here too.
Of course, most of them, I would imagine, if it was a penal colony for villains, most of them came from Scotland.
Yeah, but one of the I suppose enduring stories in Australian culture is the story of the Kelly Gang. And, you know, these guys were criminals. They were flat out, you know, shooting, killing, stealing. But the story doesn't centre on that. It centres on the fact that he put a metal bucket on his head and wore a cast iron, like, vest and got away from the cops. And, you know what? There are statues, there are museums, there are all these things built to these criminals because they were doing something completely different. And, you know, they were more focused on, you know, really just killing coppers and all that sort of stuff than they were about, you know, hurting anybody else. So all of a sudden they were heroes.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is decidedly weird. When you think about it, it's decidedly weird. But this movie doesn't sort of fall into that. You've got to remember that Costner really is the good guy in this movie. But it gets grey to the point, you know, they're happy to kill people. You know, Malone tells him, you've got to send one of theirs to the morgue, and he does it.
Yeah.
And I think... to its detriment, that's part of the reason why this movie doesn't get a lot of view, because it's not a big gangster movie.
Yeah,
this is essentially, you know, it's a procedural to a certain degree. So which is why people don't gravitate towards it, because it's not glorifying, you know, the mobsters, the Robin Hoods of that period. I could be wrong, but it's just a feeling that I get about this.
It's got a weird kind of, when you spell it out like that, it's got a weird sort of DNA with a movie like Donnie Brasco, for example, which is basically, it's like the reverse of it though, so it's a procedural but set within the mob. But it's that same idea of this guy has to follow the rules, he has to follow the police rules whilst being in an environment where he really can't be seen to be following the law. And, you know, it's what makes that movie stand out quite a bit as well. But yeah, I think you're right. I think everything you're saying is 100% spot on. And, you know, and it kind of justifies some of our positions that were mentioned before.
So, getting back to obviously the movie, after the raid on the post office, we get the baseball bat scene.
Life goes on. A man become preeminent, he is expected to have enthusiasms. What am I? What draws my admiration? What is that which gives me joy? Music. Baseball. A man stands alone at a plate. This is the time for what? For individual achievement. There he stands alone. But in the field, what? Part of a team. Teamwork. Looks, throws, catches, hustles, part of one big team. Bats himself the livelong day. Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and so on. This team don't field. What is he? You follow me? No one. Sunny day, stands it full of fans. What does he have to say? I'm going out there for myself. But I get nowhere unless the team wins.
Team.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's so good.
I want to bring it up as often as I can. I'm sorry.
It's the sound. It's the sound, and then the thump off the table, and then just the screams, and then the pool of blood that slowly pulls out as the camera's on. It's just fucking brilliant.
On the white tablecloth. And
of course.
It's just like, oh, yeah, it's just, again, so good, and just... you get such a gut feeling out of it. It's
once again reminds you Capone is a bad guy, because once again, like we see a lot of scenes where he's chatting to the press and he's saying some things. Maybe he's ordering someone else. This guy is not afraid to get his hands dirty. Does it in a full room of people knowing fine well that no one is going to see fuck all.
No, that's right. There's not a single person in that room that will say or do anything. I mean, to the left of that shot, you can actually see Nitty just going back to what he's doing.
Yeah,
he's just okay, whatever, just and having another drink.
Yeah.
It's just, this is just what he does.
Yeah, when that guy gets hit with a baseball bat, I'm fairly sure his head does go back into the left, though. Back into the left. Back into the left.
And to the left. That's exactly it. We then go out, obviously, to the Canadian border. We have all that piece with that big set piece with horses.
So good. So good.
That is such... It is so different from the rest of the movie. It stands out so much. You know, you've got horses and it's outside and it's big and everything goes on, and it culminates in the scene when they get George. Is it George? The bookkeeper.
Yes, it's George. It's George. Yeah.
Yeah, it's George the bookkeeper. I don't know. I only remember that guy from Slapshot, and it ruins it for me every time. But, you know, you've got the scene where they're questioning George, and Malone goes out and picks up the corpse of the monster. And, you know, threatens him and says, you know, I'm going to count to 3, and then blows his brains out.
So fucking good. It's so fucking good. It's also why Connery's the best Bond. Like, it is, like, because like Connery's Bond is not afraid to punch and then ask a question. It's what makes him like he's a notorious hard man. In cinema, he played tough guys usually. You only have to watch a movie like Zardoz to see them speaking the truth. True story.
That's tough. That movie is tough.
He's a tough guy. He's got a gun.
And a mustache.
And yeah, nothing else. But yeah, like it's a brilliant scene because then the guy's like stuttering, like, trying to explain it. He's fine. It's brilliant because once I've got that, because it's the most unglamorous way to bring down Capone. If you're the if you're the Untouchables, you want to you want like all the camera, you want everything. This is the big thing. But no, we're going to bring him down using his numbers. His tax.
Using the tax system, and it's just it's the unsexiest way. You know, like any major bust. You know, they want to get a big haul of all their stuff and hurt them financially and do all that sort of stuff and have pictures of big stacks of confiscated stuff, gear and everything else. But no, we've got a ledger, and that's what's going to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
And you get through that, and straight away they cut back to another Capone scene where he's getting the bad news about the shipment, and you get that 2-minute clip of "I want him dead, I want his family dead, I want his..." and it's just like, oh, I want to go to his house and piss on the ashes.
Yes. What? They got the shipment. What? They got the whole shipment. I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead. I want him dead. I don't care. What am I, alone in this world? Did I ask you what you're trying to do? Did I ask you what you're trying to do? I want you to get this fuck where he breathes. I want you to find this Nancy boy Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ashes.
Oh, so good.
He's always think about it as like De Niro probably like that was probably like the 12th time they'd done that scene, and De Niro like delivers it perfectly every single time because he is Capone like at that stage. I'm fairly sure someone did have an impromptu visit from De Niro that night where he was pissing on some ashes in someone's house. I'm in method, I'm in character. Hold that urn still. But yeah, it's brilliant, and it amps up because we're raising the stakes now, and we're starting to move that. So if we're raising the stakes, I mean, something bad's going to happen. Has to happen,
and it does, so well when Wallace takes George down in the elevator, and you realise that Nitty is disguised. And you know what? If you don't pay attention, you don't realise that it's him straight away. Because there's a diversion of the woman getting out of the lift And then they go down, and Wallace takes George downstairs, and you don't see it. You don't see what happens. You hear the gunshots. You see the exceedingly corrupt chief of police see 2 dead cops in the street and just cross himself. And then, you got the whole scene where Malone is running downstairs with Ness, and they open up the lift, and it's just sprayed with blood, and the words "touchable" is like written in blood across the lift, and it's just Wallace is hung up.
Yeah.
on a hook, and he's been shot through the glasses, through the eye.
Yeah. Because it's that way. Like, he's not going to have a open casket. It's the most it's a mob pit if ever there was one.
Yeah. Despite not back into the left, just straight in the eye.
Oh, God.
Straight in the eye.
Headshot.
That's right. If in any other movie, that would have been done in slow-mo. Just brains just spraying out the back across the thing with tears in his eyes. But no, so it doesn't get overplayed because Nitty is a background character. He's there, and he's like Capone's subconscious. He's the evil part of Capone. He's the one that does the killing. He's the one that is merciless about it. Capone's just this larger than life character, and Nitty's the one. I mean, he was the enforcer. He blew up a shop with a little kid inside. Right at the start of the movie, and it's just like, yep, he's the man.
Yeah, Capone doesn't get to where he is without having loyal people underneath him. But every organisation needs the mad bastard that doesn't give a fuck about anything.
Yeah, yes, they're just the absolute psychotic, and Nitty is him in this movie. So, we get through that, and obviously, Ness goes across the road, confronts Capone, in his home, essentially. I love when he goes to pull a gun, and there's 20 guns automatically just pointed at him.
It's like that scene in RoboCop. Ooh, guns. Guns,
yeah. Oh, so good. And you get nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Oh, look, he's chewing it. He is absolutely chewing the scene. It's just, it's like he's permanently got... But you know what I mean? It's like he's permanently got the cigar in his mouth, even when it's not there.
Over description of him.
But that,
you're spot on. You're spot on.
This is it's an audio medium. People can't see the fact that I'm pulling that face. But
yeah, the De Niro face that everyone pulls when they try and do an impression of De Niro.
That's exactly. It's the De Niro face with a sound.
It's like your face muscles go back and to the left, don't they? That's how you did.
Yeah, they go back and to the left, and your lip just sort of goes down. So we go through that. We find out about the bookkeeper, who is Walter Payne. We then get to the scene that we've mentioned a couple of times, where obviously Malone gets absolutely murdered, and we get the comment about just like a wop to bring a knife to a
gunfight. Brilliant,
yeah.
Brilliant. And then sadly, it plays against him.
I like the fact that he keeps a sawn off in the cabinet. In his home, yep. Just the doorbell rings, get the sawn off.
Yeah. Also, as well, what I love about because this is shades of we were talking about the scene earlier on being De Palma, but this is classic De Palma. So this is like straight razor, this is giallo. It's like a weird. Yeah. He is a Drago is a giallo killer, but in white, which doesn't make any sense. It's like the inverse of it. I fucking love it. It's stylish as fuck, and he just he just does it as if it's nothing. He's just I'm just going to do one of these scenes in here, because why not? I'm the deal. I can do whatever I want. And it's brilliant. It pulls at the heartstrings, but at that point we've stacked the cards. We've got two of the kind of background characters in the Untouchables crew are now gone, and it's left to George Stone, if that is your real name, and Elliot Ness to bring things home.
Yeah, and then obviously that drags us straight into the scene in Union Station, which we mentioned earlier.
One of the great scenes of all time, and like my personal opinion, when we talk about the power of action sequences in cinema, this is a action scene which is done in slow motion.
Yes,
and doesn't miss a beat.
No, but it's done well. It's not about, we hadn't kind of hit the bullet time stage.
Yeah.
Where everything was like track the bullet and all that sort of bullshit. I love The Matrix. Don't get me wrong. But there was a point where every movie had it, and it's just like, I'm done. Just fucking let it go. But there's so much going on this, and really, this is the set piece that they're here is very small.
Mm-hmm.
There's a set of stairs, there's the doors in and out of the station, and then there's the balcony, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so much happens in this. Straight away, when you see the woman with the baby and everything else, that he's torn, he doesn't know what to do, and he's watching, and it culminates in the scene that everybody has seen, with the baby carriage like bouncing down the stairs in amongst the shooting and everything else, and you're just sort of going, there was part of me that never knows what I should be looking at, despite the fact that De Palma's telling me. He's pointing at all the things that I should be paying attention to. But, I want to go, I want to see more of the guys shooting. I want to see more of what happens with that baby. And everything's happening at once in slow-mo. And I'm still going, I want to know what happens. And the weird thing is, this scene isn't bloody.
No.
It's not. It's not explosive. It's not gory, but it's visually just so.
It's so busy, like compared to
Thank you.
It's so busy compared. He deliberately slows the pace down for your big action set piece. It should be the other way around. So he's inverting expectations there, but it's so rich and busy with visual keys and visual cues that you get the experience of a action-packed scene whilst it's playing at half the time of what it should. It's fucking genius, is what it is. This is why I love De Palma. This is why I love him, like, hands down, one of my favourite directors of all time. Because he does shit like this. It's ballsy as fuck. This is how I'm going to finish your movie. I'm going to give you a massive shit out, but I'm going to do it slow. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at an innocent baby and a car's running down there as we're going to hear the sound effects in the background without seeing the action. It's amazing.
Oh, so good. And, he puts an exclamation point on it as it finishes, Stone's on the floor, holding the pram, with his gun out. Ness is on the balcony. They're both, obviously they've got a standoff with the bow tie driver, and that's how he's credited in the movie. And he, while it isn't him, he looks weirdly like, and I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, the guy from Raising Arizona.
Oh,
is you know who I mean, right?
Yeah, I do. Fuck.
John Goodman's brother.
Yeah.
In Raising Arizona. For those of you at home, feel free to yell at me. But he looks like, it's not him. It looks like him, but it's not. And, he says, have you got the shot? And he goes, I've got the shot. And just, poof. And that absolutely puts an exclamation point on that scene. It's the one, explosion that you see. And it's just like, poof, done. And then we just move on.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And you're almost holding your breath. Just at that point, I know I was. And I every time.
Totally. Is it William Forsythe is the actor that we're struggling to remember?
No.
Is it not him?
It's not William Forsythe.
It's going to annoy me because then I'm racking my brain to try and work out who it is.
The thing is, because the sad thing is I actually looked it up and went, oh no, it's not him, and then promptly forgot who it was. Mostly because I'm an idiot. It is William Forsythe. You're right. Sorry, my mistake.
I thought he was John Goodman's brother.
He's William Forsythe. He's John Goodman's brother in Raising Arizona, which is an awesome movie.
Yes. Yes.
But it's not him. It looks like him though. The caffeine's kicked in.
You're going to be seeing everything in slow motion when you finish recording.
Yes, I will.
It's going to be like the end sequence of the Untouchables.
It'll be like that episode of Futurama where Fry has like 100 cups of coffee.
It's 100, yeah.
Ding! And everything just goes super slow. Anyway, I'll be chasing prams for the rest of the day. This all obviously, now that they've got the bookkeeper, it goes straight into the trial. And this is obviously the final 15 minutes, and it's a big set piece. And I think under normal circumstances, any other director would have finished it with this court scene.
Yep, I agree. Yeah,
right? But De Palma, pulls it out, and we get the whole sequence with Nitty and Ness, and him finding out that Nitty has the matchbook with Malone's address on it, and he realizes that he's the killer. And there's a chase sequence across the roof and everything else. The bit where Ness rolls off the roof.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my god. But that's the noise he makes.
You've just ruined this movie for me. I'm never going to watch this the same way again.
So you'll see that, but comes back and shoots Nitty through the top of his hat, and Billy Drago goes flying back, and you think, oh, it's a headshot, but no, he just shot his hat.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that sequence, and you go through there, and you think that obviously Nitty thinks he's literally untouchable. He's got a note from the mayor that says he can do whatever he wants, which it talks to the level of corruption that's in that city. And he taunts Ness about the whole thing about killing Malone and everything else, and Ness finally breaks and throws him off the roof. And as we mentioned, that sequence, if they'd just shown him throwing him off the roof and then cut to the point where he hits the car, that much better.
Yeah, but it's De Palma. He needs to show you him falling.
Yeah, and again, blue screen. Not so good.
Yeah.
Moving away from that, we go straight back. And he goes back. They discover that the whole jury has been bribed. It's not just one or two guys. No, it's the entire jury.
Yeah. Why take a chance? If you're Capone, why even bother taking the chance? You're rich enough to put everyone on the tab, so let's put everyone on the tab.
Yeah. And, we go through the sequence where the juries get switched over after Ness basically tells the judge that, oh no, you're on the list too. You're in the books, despite the fact that he isn't. And there's just enough, worry. And the look on the judge's faces is like, I know I didn't do anything wrong, but maybe I did. And I'm not really sure. He's just like, it was enough to threaten him with the fact that he might have been in the book. Might have been in the ledger that he goes, yep, swaps them. And then everything erupts into that final scene that we're talking about where, they're just... Capone goes mental. He's punches out his lawyer, which I love. It's just like, yes, well, they changes his plea to guilty, goes through. And look, honestly, I still think that whole scene, they're holding him back and he's just, I honestly think that... he may have actually punched him. I'm not really sure, but De Niro may have just gone full method and just punched that poor guy in the face. I don't know, because by this stage he's gone. He's Capone completely. He is over the top.
Oh yeah, but it has to be.
He's absolutely bananas. For me, this movie could have ended when Ness just walked out of the courthouse. That would have been enough. We get a bit of a sappy ending, with Ness handing over the stuff to Stone and walks away, and then we get the joke about, if Prohibition gets repealed, I think I'll have a drink. And we walk out. Sorry, that scene. It didn't need, in my opinion, it didn't need to be there. It actually, for me, it sort of took away from what had just happened and the epic level of acting in that scene in the court. If they'd ended it as he'd walked out of the court, I would have been 100% happy.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
It's good to close it out, and I get it. And obviously we get that Prohibition's going to end, and maybe we needed that note, but that's what it is. And then all of a sudden we're at that 2 hour mark, and we're done, and everyone breathes and unclenches, and we're good. So much talking, so much stuff. For me, my favourite scene is, without a doubt, the scene where Malone blows away the dead gangster's brains, because that is just the reaction from George. He goes full Italian for 30 seconds and probably quite clearly soils himself. Well, Malone even says, "Don't let him clean himself until he's answered." And sorry, that was terrible. But it just really nailed that. That scene is so good. That for me, that is the on top of everything else, it was enough for really nailing home to push what he's willing to do. It's so good. Now, I've got to ask you, what's your favourite scene, mate?
I mean, this is it should put me in cinematic jail, but it is Jim Malone's death in the movie. It's like peak De Palma for me. Like, this is like where De Palma encapsulates pretty much most of the cinema that got him to that point. But the setup, the execution, the split screens, the musical cues, the way it's drawn out, the cinematography, just everything about it. And Connery plays it really, really, really well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He doesn't overplay it. He's not doing that, oh, you shot, oh, he's... He doesn't have to do it that way, and it works perfectly. And it's immensely sad as well. It's like it's one of those sad scenes which, it's just, to me, it's the linchpin to the movie, really, because everything, Wallace dies, and that's a sad thing, but everything changes after Malone dies. And that to me, it's just one of those, the artistry and the craft that goes in to making a scene like that is one of the reasons why I will always, like I said earlier on, regardless of where he ends up or whatever he makes now, it's why I'll always be a diehard De Palma fan. So.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, skipping into leader of the pack, or the standout for this movie. For me, as I mentioned up front, it's Billy Drago as Nitty. He's creepy, he's a killer, and it's just, his character is so understated against the Capone character that it just works for me.
Nice. I'm going to have to once again pull for the home country. Connery, I love him. I think there's something. Connery basically in this movie plays pretty much the same role as he plays in Highlander. He comes.
No, I can see that.
He comes along at the right time to be a mentor, mentors Elliot Ness in all the ways that he will be able to take down Capone, and then dies at the hands of his enforcer, thus spurring Elliot Ness to do the thing he needs to do at the end. So it's basically the same role. And if we were talking about Highlander, I would tell you the MVP of Highlander is also John Connery, even though Clancy Brown holds a special place in my heart. But yeah, I think he's
Clancy Brown. I'm sorry, it will always be.
It's always been the Kurgan. But yeah, he's to me, he's brilliant. The fact that we get that standoff between the two of them, between Nitti and Malone. I've told you it's my favourite scene, so it works for me on many levels. I think he's really, 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 really good in this. Plays tough, and the way that you want him to play tough. His character is no bullshit, and I love that. But Nitty's exactly the same way. They're like opposites of each other, working for. Each of them have the enforcer, but each of them have the boss that can do so much but can't really get too in the weeds. And then they have Malone and Nitti, who are basically the bagmen of both organisations. I kind of love that.
Awesome. All right. Well, what about your rating, mate? We do out of 5. I know you may be familiar with that system, so by all means, what is your score out of 5?
The Untouchables is a 5 for me.
A 5.
I don't know where you land. It's I think with the issues that we've raised as being small concerns, it's damn near a perfect movie. It's a movie that at 33 years old does not feel like it has aged much of anything at all. I think it's paced perfectly. I think the cinematography is phenomenal. I think the score is phenomenal. Casting excellent. Yeah, to me, it's damn near as close as you'll get to a perfect gangster movie.
This is, you're 100% correct there. For me, it's a 4.5, only because every time I see Nitty fall, it takes me out of it. And for me, it annoys me because the rest of the movie is so good. It is just so evocative and so emotional, and it's just like, oh, now you put in shitty blue screen, and I'm mad. And then I come back and I'm going, now I'm happy again. Yeah, look, it's a solid 4.5 for me.
Nice.
You're making me want to. You're making me want to change, though. You are making me want to change it to a 5, and I'm gonna stick with my guns. 4.5. It is freaking awesome. Everyone should see it. If they've already seen it, see it again. See it soon, and talk to me about it. Now, closing out the show, thank you very much for joining me in the very early numbers. As I said, I love chatting with you, and I'm really happy to get you to talk about this movie, which you clearly love. Would you like to tell listeners who may not know you exactly where they can find your fantastic work?
So if you liked what you heard, well, you probably didn't, but if you did, and you wanted to hear me throw maybe the same amount of passion or scorn on movies in a completely different genre, that genre being horror, you can check me out on Podcast Under the Stairs. It can be found on the website tputscast.com, or if you search Podcast Under the Stairs on any device, you will be able to find my humble little show. So please come and check me out. And once again, I cannot honestly thank you enough. I don't often get an opportunity to chat out with the genre that my show exists in, but any opportunity to do that is exciting, especially when it's chatting with you about movies like this. And as soon as we hit stop, we will compare notes on what you might think the movie is that I want to come back and do somewhere in the future, and I look forward to making my return then.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. All right, well, coming up on our next episode in 2 weeks' time, we're dragging our guest into the twisted future of street gangs in A Clockwork Orange. Remember, be a good fellow and leave a rating or review on whichever app you're using to listen to the show, and make sure you share it with the rest of your gang on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as GOHpod, and at www.gohpod.com. Most of all, make sure you say hello to your little friend for me.
The Chicago way. 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 The Chicago way.